Welcome to the Corporate Governance Program. I'm Amir Qureshi. Thank you for joining us.
I think there is reasonably good provisions in there for the minority shareholder. There's always room to maybe strengthen a few areas, but usually the issue is not with the code or with the law as such, it's how it's implemented, whether the spirit is honored and reflected in the decision-making process, the appointment, and so on and so forth. So,
if you really want an independent board to oversee the corporate governance and the company, I think it's simple, because the chairman who runs the board and the chief executive who runs the company, then these two positions must be separated. So I think time has come that when we revise the code, we should separate these two positions for listed companies.
I hope you've been enjoying our program so far. Let me now introduce our two special guests for this program. Firstly, Mr. Zafar Khan. Until recently, he was the chairman of PIA. He's also been a president and CEO of Engro Chemical and chairman of Karachi Stock Exchange. Thank you very much for being on the program.
Pleasure.
And next to him is Mr. Asad Ali Shah, who's a partner of Deloitte Chartered Accountants, also a council member of ICAP. Thank you also for being here.
thank you.
I hope you've been following our episodes so far. We've covered various aspects of corporate governance, and there are a few special issues I wanted to discuss with you, given the background of both of you. Firstly, Mr. Zafar Khan, I wanted to ask you about whether the code provides adequate protection for minority shareholders. That is one of the areas I've been wanting to explore with someone like yourself.
Well, I guess we should look at the code and both the company's ordinance, because both of them have an interplay. I think there is reasonably good provisions in there for the minority shareholder. There's always room to maybe strengthen a few areas, but usually the issue is not with the code or with the law as such, it's how it's implemented, whether the spirit is honored and reflected in the decision-making process, the appointment, and so on and so forth. So,
one of the issues that has been raised by many of our guests is that the Code of Corporate Governance, because it's compulsory for listed companies, is obviously complied with, but a lot of companies are not really accepting or adopting governance in a wholehearted sort of way. Would you agree with that?
well, let me just say that, I think the code has come some way. I mean, with each passing year, I think it's getting better. But if I take a snapshot of the situation today, I'd probably agree that there are many companies that just comply with it in form, not in spirit. They do the essential minimums, like we say, you just tick off, done, that sort of a thing.
That's actually a good point to ask Mr. Asad Ali Shah. What do you think? Would you agree with what we're saying?
Yeah, I think I agree. Most of the companies, other than few who follow best practices, and one can name few, I would say are carrying out what is called box ticking exercise. But nevertheless, I think they are moving towards better governance, and at least they are appreciating, understanding what the governance is. And there have been cases, we have seen some entrepreneurs and some people who initially were very reluctant and opposed the code tooth and nail, and subsequently I think they have become proponents of corporate governance. So I think it has created a lot of awareness, and even if the companies are complying 20% or 30% of the requirements, still they are moving towards good corporate governance, and I think slowly and gradually we are moving towards good governance.
I suppose the next question I'd like to ask you is that the code has been in place for quite some time. Do you think it's time for the code to be revised? And perhaps, Mr. Zafar Khan, you could also add to that once.
Absolutely. I think code was, as you know, initially drafted by a committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, our committee, and then it was owned by the SECP, and it was notified in March 2002. We are sitting in 2008. In today's world, I think after 2 years, things become stale. And I have reviewed the code because we did a comparative analysis South Asian countries, because we had a committee at SAFA level, South Asian Federation of Accountants, and incidentally I chaired that committee, and we did a comparative analysis of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Nepal, of course, is a very minor. They don't have many requirements, but in that process, and also we compared the existing practices with the international best practices. We found that there were significant improvements required in Pakistan code as well. I think the greatest weakness of our code is that it doesn't require any independent directors as a mandatory requirement in the code. I cannot conceive of effective governance, corporate governance
without
of public interest entities without having any independent element in the board level. And also, most of the countries, you will find that audit committee, majority of the directors are independent non-executive directors.
Yes.
So I think those are the areas, and there are obviously many other areas which require further improvement.
Let's get Mr. Zafar Khan's perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd like to also go back to when this code initially came about. As he rightly said, the Institute of Chartered Accountants played a very important role in the initial drafting of it. But then what happened was that they put in for some stakeholder consultation. And I recall at the time I was involved with the Overseas Chamber, and this draft came there, and Overseas Chamber, as you know, is made up of multinational companies, so we looked at it. And there were some apprehensions and concerns. Here's another set of regulations and rules coming. So I'd say that, considering there is usually resistance to these sorts of things, generally speaking. Even from multinationals, I sense there was some concern and resistance. But it was still a very good move, even if it had to be watered down in a few areas. So at least let's make a beginning with it. So I think that was very positive. It came about, and then the process of education has started. But as he said, as time has gone by, we have now lived with this code for a few years. We see some areas where there is room for improvement, and also, things have been happening in the rest of the world, so we can look at best practices again and update it. So this will be it's a continuing process,
it's an
ongoing thing, and we should take it in that spirit.
One of the issues that keeps coming up when we talk to experts in the area of corporate governance, they say that Pakistan needs to develop its own model of governance. It's not acceptable to adapt or adopt the model from, for example, the United Kingdom, which is perhaps what we've been doing, or the United States. What do you think about the proposition that Pakistan needs to develop its own model for governance?
There is some merit in that argument, I would say, because, as you said, a lot of people say this is a very Anglo-Saxon model and it's being imposed on us, and culturally very Kannada. I'm not sure I totally agree with that. If we can sort of adapt it a bit more to our culture, I think that's fine. But you see, the issue is like having basic R&D kind of work done in this to exactly understand it, evolve certain principles and rules, is going to take a long, long time to come. Here is something, and plus, secondly, because we are every day moving towards being part of a global society, and there's so much of money flow now that takes place, idea flow, money flow, product flow between geographies and territories, that eventually it'll have to be one sort of a minimum essential code standards that will have to be followed.
I just need to stop you there because it's time for a commercial break. We'll be back with more of the corporate governance program, so don't go away.